Hey everyone, this is Nick from the Botch Pit, and today we're going to be talking about a source book called World of Darkness Armory for the Chronicles of Darkness. At this time, I would like to note that this is the first in a planned series of 3 broadcasts regarding weaponry in the World of Darkness, the second being World of Darkness Armory Reloaded, and the third being Chronicles of Darkness Hurt Locker. Each one highlights weaponry in different ways, and it wasn't really fitting to combine them all into one video. However, when all of them are put together in order, it gives a greater bird's eye view of the entire subject matter, as well as additional weaponry related ideas that can be implemented. Armory, as you may have guessed, details a broad range of melee weaponry, firearms and ranged weaponry, tactical and heavy weaponry, vehicles, and additional equipment and accessories one may need to survive the World of Darkness. As a heads up, this broadcast is going to feel like an incredibly long list. That's because that's what Armory gives you, an amazingly large list of weapons and ways to go about bringing your enemy's demise. The core theme of Armory is preparedness, which I learned incredibly quick, unfortunately the hard way, when playing Chronicles of Darkness. That was when I began to search for a book to help me, well, survive, and this is where I ended up. And trust me, it really helped. This book offers a long list of potential and possible weapons that you may have not considered when first picking up Chronicles of Darkness, and if that is something that you potentially need, this is a great place to start. The contents of this book are aids for improvisation and cleverness, however, they are not substitutes for them. An ongoing mood for this book is the interplay between passion and dispassion, and although creatures, human or otherwise, wield these tools, it's actually a book regarding the person behind them as the gear doesn't act on its own. And remember, he who dies with the most toys is still in fact very dead. What I mean by this is that this book highlights the creative ways of using this weaponry in addition to the weaponry itself. Also, this book is incredibly detailed with all stats required in implementing these weapons into your game. Some instances of iconic yet often unconventional creative weaponry appearing in pop culture would be Ellen Ripley in Aliens with the P5000 powered workloader, the vinyl records used by Shaun and Ed in Shaun of the Dead, the Joker's pencil trick in The Dark Knight, Ash Williams' chainsaw arm in Evil Dead 2, Indiana Jones' whip, and the golf club in BioShock. Melee weapons seem to be outmoded in this day and age as guns have outruled them for hundreds of years. Why would anyone run headfirst at an opponent with a sword when they could just mow you down with a machine gun? First, remember that melee weapons can extend to bats and more that can be more easily modded than most weapons. Second, don't diss improvised weapons in close quarters. Thirdly, more than likely the creatures you're fighting won't be hurt by bullets. And if you are playing those creatures that have existed longer than guns have been around, I'm looking at you, Vampire the Requiem, they like to settle matters with iron and steel instead. Werewolves have natural melee attacks of tooth and claw, and mages may even follow in the footsteps of tradition with enchanted daggers or cursed swords. Things to consider about melee weapons include if it is a decorative weapon or historical weapon, the item's degradation, the materials it is made out of, such as bone, bronze, folded steel, obsidian, and silver. Also, how much training the character has with this type of weaponry dictated by Melee 101, which includes sports, crafts, self-defense class, police academy, and basic training, or Melee 201, which includes stage combat, fencing, martial arts, and special forces. A weapon catalog complete with traits is included, consisting of knives and daggers, swords, blunt weapons, chain weapons, polearms, axes and hammers, and miscellaneous weaponry such as brass knuckles and so forth. This section also highlights improvised weaponry, tools, powered and otherwise, found in rigged weapons, such as a board with nails, and also how to rig weapons too. Since the later days of the Renaissance, firearms have been humanity's dominant personal weapons. The intervening centuries have seen vast improvements in lethality, range, accuracy, and reliability, but the basic principle of the gun remains the same. The rapid expansion of hot gas released by a small, confined explosion propels a roughly aerodynamic projectile down a metal tube, which serves to impart an initial direction to the projectile's flight. When this projectile and the human body attempt to occupy the same space, the human body usually loses. Everything else is a matter of details. The details, however, are where the devil is said to reside. Kyujutsu, traditional Japanese archery, holds that every shot has 4 elements, all of which must exist in a state of harmony for the shot to strike true. The bow, the arrow, the archer, and the target. The firearms chapter is devoted to the details of the material half, the weapon and the projectile. The first segment, titled The Way of the Gun, gives players an incredibly detailed explanation about, well, almost every action of what a gun does and how they work. Included in this is proper and improper marksmanship techniques for handguns, rifles, and shotguns, and how this plays out in combat, ballistics in regards to how bullets hurt, and why some bullets hurt more than others, as well as recoil, types of actions including break action, revolver, bolt action, lever action, pump action, semi-automatic, and automatic. Also discussed are safeties, selectors, and burst fire, types of feeds including internal magazines, detachable magazines, and belts, as well as a glossary containing general terminology, ammunition-specific terminology, and manufacturers. Guns 101 includes those individuals with backgrounds concerning civilian training programs like beginner's instruction, hunter safety, and concealed deadly weaponry, rural upbringings, law enforcement academies, military boot camps, insurgent and militia indoctrination, street lessons, and pop culture. Guns 201 includes competitive shooting such as target trap and skeet, winter biathlon and pentathlon, civilian defense training, CQB, which is close quarters battles, sniper school, and ninja gun fu assassin clans of the dark future. It's in the book. There is also a list of traits that go along with each ranged weapon, including damage, ranges, capacity, strength, size, and cost. Types of firearms in the World of Darkness gun locker include revolvers, autoloaders, other types of handguns, submachine guns, full-size SMGs, machine pistols, rifles, bolt-action rifles, lever-action rifles, semi-automatic rifles, assault rifles, shotguns, pump-action shotguns, semi-automatic shotguns, machine guns, and archaic firearms. Different types of ammunition is also discussed for each of these firearms as well. Other ranged weapons include archaic ranged weapons like thrown weapons and propelled weapons, and modern ranged weapons. When implementing any of these into your game, practical considerations need to come into play as well. This includes maintenance, handedness, underwater bullet ballets, cook-offs, burning out the barrel, muzzle blasts, pistol whipping, magazines, and tapping off. Also, be considerate if your character can obtain this weapon based upon their background, and if it is even legal for them to be even carrying it around. Some targets are too much for one human to attack, some are too risky to even take head on, some targets are too well protected, and some aren't there at the present time, but they will be there soon. The heavy weapons section is dedicated to all those tactical and heavy weapons. Also remember, in a firefight, these weapons are equal opportunity destroyers and may potentially hurt your allies in addition to the enemy. The traits for explosives include type, damage, which includes blast area and force, ranges, cost, size, and effects. Heavy weaponry includes grenades, hand grenades and grenade launchers, artillery, motors and howitzers, rockets and missiles, rocket launchers and missile launchers, military vehicle armament, aerial bombs, and flamethrowers. Demolitions and types of explosives include nitroglycerin, dynamite, TNT, C4, ANFO, Semtex, gunpowder, flash powder, accessories, how to create homemade explosives, how to arm and disarm explosive devices in general, combining explosives, landmines, anti-personnel landmines, anti-tank landmines, anti-tamper devices. Also, nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons and their delivery methods, such as the canister, the aerosol spray, conventional explosive devices, artillery shells, and unconventional devices, as well as decontamination methods. Nuclear weapons include dirty bombs, biological weapons, including anthrax and ricin, chemical weapons, indicating chemical agents, mustard, hydrogen cyanide, phosgene, sarin, VX, rat poison, bug bomb, non-lethal chemical agents like Cola-Col-1, BZ, and tear gas, medical supplies to alleviate these attacks, anticoagulants, painkillers, and nitrous oxide, as well as treatment. This book also places a focus on a range of vehicles to which ordinary characters are likely to have access to, including private and commercial ground vehicles, watercraft, and aircraft. Vehicle traits include durability, size, structure, acceleration, safe speed, maximum speed, handling, occupants, and cost. Ground vehicles include passenger cars, sports cars, light trucks, vans, motorcycles, personal vehicles like bikes and skateboards, commercial vehicles, construction equipment, and armored vehicles. Watercraft includes small boats, motorboats, and sailboats. Aircraft includes light airplanes, commercial airplanes, combat airplanes, and helicopters, and there's also a section dedicated to very large vehicles such as trains and tanks. A highlight from this chapter is called Need for Speed, which talks about modifying or augmenting cars with different upgrades, as well as different packages for police and security, as well as cosmetic customization. Other bits of information include hazards associated with certain vehicles, such as turbines and propellers, the driver's education and licensure for any of these vehicles, as well as how vehicles can interplay into a story. In the entirety of this book, this is my favorite section. And the reason for that is because it gives you examples of how to turn cars or normal vehicles into enemies. What I mean by this is that when you think of a car or a vehicle, you never really associate it with being evil in some sort of way. However, this could be a very awesome story hook that's unique that you could present to your players. For example, if we look at the works by Stephen King, specifically I'm talking about Christine, with the titular Christine, as well as the Green Goblin truck in Maximum Overdrive. However, in literature, his works can also extend to Mr. Mercedes, Cujo from a Buick 8, and even Reckless Minivan. And if built right, a car could actually be a very intricate and difficult enemy to deal with, and something that your players may not see coming. And also it extends to ships too, so when we think of haunted ships or ghost ships, think of the Pirates of the Caribbean, for example, the Black Pearl or even the Flying Dutchman. You can also incorporate this into your story as well, which may be something that your players may have not had to deal with before. I also feel like I should mention the 2002 American-Australian horror film Ghost Ship, directed by Steve Beck at this time, because if I don't, I feel like the Botch Pit will disown me. The final chapter of this book is dedicated to miscellaneous gear, which is essentially lists of other gear and accessories one may find useful when trekking through the world of darkness. Firearm accessories include bipods, ear protection, gunsmithing kit, light mount, reloading bench, reloading bullets, sighting tools, fiber optic sights, laser sights, telescopic sights, night vision telescopic sights, thermal telescopic sights, speed loaders, collapsible stocks, and suppressors. Surveillance gear includes binoculars, covert listening devices such as bugs, bug sweeper, disguise camera, tracking devices, keystroke logger, reverse peephole, spyware, Wi-Fi sniffer, and wiretap. Survival gear includes nuclear biological chemical suits, potassium iodide, basic survival kit, advanced survival kit, superior survival kit, and urban survival kit. Other miscellaneous gear includes camouflage, ghost hunting equipment, handcuffs, lie detector, satellite phone, scent eliminator, and voice disguiser. Armor includes bomb suits, bulletproof vest accessories, chainmail, flak jacket, full riot gear, leather armor, lorica segmentata, plate armor, reinforced clothing, and sports equipment. Shields touch on ballistic shield, ballistic armor wall, improvised shields, medieval shields, and riot shields. Finally, they discuss security and traps, wherein security systems include base, intermediate, advanced, bleeding edge, dummy, and supernatural security, and traps, and also how to rig them, include caltrops, deadfall, jaw trap, pit trap, projectile trap, and snare. As stated at the beginning, this broadcast is going to feel like an incredibly long list, because that's what Armory is. However, what Armory really does, it allows you to make weaponry act as an extension of your character. What I mean by this is that your weapon has to be somewhat unique to your character, in my opinion. Like, not every character could use everything on this list. Technically they could, however, what I'm really stating is that you need to think and consider what your character ought to use, instead of what they can use. As for merits in this book, most of them have been tweaked slightly in later books and revisions, but all merits here incorporate fighting styles that are reflected for weapons being used. For example, we have chain weapons as well as sniping as potential fighting styles, which are reflected upon their indicating weapons used throughout these chapters. Again, further driving home the point that a weapon ought to act as an extension of a character. Things to remember when adding weapons to a character is to be realistic with what you are able to carry and be aware that this may play out both positively and negatively with your storyteller, aka you may walk slower with more weapons. You're not trying to build a tank of a person with this book. That's not its true intention. When discussing all these weapons, I intentionally glazed over the notes on cost. The costs of the items in this book have been calculated roughly according to the following principle. An item has a given cost if a character with the resources merit at that level could purchase the item with no more than half of his or her monthly disposable income. To attach appropriate numbers to this, cost of 1 is anything up to $250. Cost of 2 is up to $500. Cost of 3 is up to $1,000. Cost of 4 is up to $5,000. And cost of 5 is up to $25,000 and beyond. The price tags of vehicles have been divided by 60 to account for 5-year monthly payment plans. This system can help you determine what cost to assign a real-world item when giving it traits in the storyteller system, as well as a rough idea of just how many items of cost 2 a character with resources 3 can afford in a single month, should you wish to deal with item acquisition on such an in-depth level. Also, this can't be stressed enough, weaponry in the real world, whether it's for example concealing weapons and the legality that plays, holds an incredible role and shouldn't be overlooked in the World of Darkness as well. Truthfully, you really want this as grounded as possible. As a final thought, in totality, I feel as though Armory should really be at the ready whenever developing a character's weapons, really from the get-go. Although characters change and adapt over time, and so do their weapons obviously, having an idea of what your character ought to use helps really push the story in its proper direction. And it never really hurts to not have a massive list like this in front of you. This has been Nick from the Botch Pit. Thank you.